Okay, I think I'm recording. I'm here with Phoenix Barbie. Remember Phoenix Barbie, because if you ask me later about the notebook, I'm going to say, what was the name of the Barbie that was with me in the video about the notebook? I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to go over a couple things from classwork. So remember Phoenix Barbie. She had a wild ride today. So we ran out of time in class today, and I did this very quickly. Let me share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. Share screen. Okay, and let's see here. The first thing is the notebook. Okay, so I'm going to have notebooks turned in. The plan is next Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when I see you next. So we'll talk about this again on Monday, but I just wanted to point out. This is basically like everything you should have done so far. I think I've got everything captured, and the idea is you would just check each one that you've got, and for any work that you've done out of the book, it's 2 checks. And you could give yourself a single check. It's like, well, I did some of the problems, but I didn't do all of them. So if you go through every single one, if you've got everything in order, when at the very bottom, you should realize that I've actually got, I think it works out to 54 checks if you do everything. You don't need 54 checks. I also realized going through and finding like, yes, I've definitely got this particular handout, maybe a little bit of a pain, but some of you might want to do that anyway. It's actually a great way to review for the test next week. So consider actually doing this and then just looking at each piece, each thing as you look over it. Is there anything on here that I might want to remember for the test or work out a problem again? So you can do that whole checklist. There is an easier version. If you flip it over to the back, there's an easier version, and that's not it. Easier version is basically you can count up how many warm-ups you've got. They need to be easy for me to find in your notebook. So if you need to mark them somehow, like this is a warm-up. If you've got them in order, especially if you've dated them, it's sometimes hard to tell if you've got 2 or 3 on a page. Like I can't tell if it's 1 warm-up or 3 warm-ups. So make sure they're easy to find. So you can just count up how many warm-ups you've got. There should be 25 total. If you've got more than 25, I miscounted. It just put 25. How many handouts you have? These are just your group classworks. So like the Barbie things like that, no quizzes or anything else. Just count up how many you've got. You should have 15 of those if you've got all of them. And then how many completed bookwork assignments do you have? I think there's 7 of them, if I've counted up correctly. And those, once you count those up, and once again, I need to be able to find those pretty quickly if I flip through. So they should be pretty obvious, like it's roughly, if you've got your notebook done sequentially, it should be pretty easy. You might need to mark it as like homework or something like that. But you could just count those up, add number 1, add number 2, double the points for number 3, assuming you've got complete assignments for all those, and then total that up. And if that is more than 40 points, this is how many this is out of. So max of 40, there's no extra credit because I don't want you freaking out like I can't find this worksheet or I'm missing this one warm-up. I just am trying to keep you honest about doing the warm-ups and keeping track of your work and doing the work out of the book, because keeping a good notebook is a good practice just for any class. And so I'm trying to encourage you to do that in the best way I know how. Okay, so that's the notebook. Probably the next important thing to remind you of is we have a test coming up next week. The plan is Tuesday. I may move it, or Tuesday and Wednesday. I might move it to Thursday and Friday, but probably not. It's going to be 30 multiple choice, and I'll let you know Monday. But it's going to be 30 multiple choice questions. You will see in Google Classroom, there is an example of 10 of those questions. They're largely going to be from the book. Although they're slightly altered, maybe different numbers, maybe slightly different scenario, but they'll all be ones that we have done, hopefully, and most likely talked about in class, which means things like warm-ups and AP classroom stuff that we've done on the board, I've done in the overhead, is also fair game. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to give you anything you haven't seen before, but anything that we have talked about and seen before, you should have a relatively good guess how to answer them. And the fact that it's multiple choice makes it a tiny bit easier, not necessarily. And that will be a 60-minute test. It'll be 30 questions. So it'll basically simulate a AP exam. And that will also, what was I going to say? Oh, so you'll have your formula sheet, you'll have your table, and you'll have a calculator most likely. Certainly if you have your own, and there's a question at the end of this one, because I'm trying to figure out if I actually have enough calculators to give everybody one. And some of you may not care, because some of you may actually prefer the table. It's actually probably a safer way to do things if you understand how to do it. So that's that. The last thing, and you can cut me off at any point now that you know Phoenix Barbie. But I do want to talk about Barbie a little bit. Oh, let's just show the video really quick from today. Is that the short one? Oh, this is the short one. Okay. So here's the video from day 1. Sorry, day 2 people. Oh, why are we not have sound? Oh, we don't have sound here because it's plugged in this way. Hold on. 1, 0. Hopefully you got sound there. I don't know if you got sound or not. Okay. Let's back it up here again. There we go. Watch the one on the end. I think the one on the left end hits. 0. Yeah, that one hits. That one in the middle, that was very close. Do it one more time. Oh. That one in the middle there, that was mine. So I think I got closest. I kind of cheated. I'll talk about that later. All right. So let's see, what else? So the classwork that we did today, you had to, let me go back and find my notes. So you had a scatter plot. So everybody had different data. Every group had different data. This was my data. My data looks pretty good there. There's the residual from my linear. There's my approximate regression model. This is for rubber bands squared. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns into 0, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and so forth. So this should really be relabeled as x squared or rubber band squared because those are my inputs, and those generate the same numbers as before. So that that curve there, it's still kind of relatively, but because we've stretched it out, it's changed its shape a little bit. We're going to do a straight line on that again, and so for that, the model here, not written quite right. This should actually be written like, distance hat equals 48 plus 2.25. And then rubber band squared was my input. So if I'm writing that correctly on a test, and I'll show you an example of it in a minute. And then I ask you to do the log of the distance back to rubber band, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the log of the distance turns all those numbers into logs. So those are like 10 to the 1.4 was my 30 number, I think. And 10 to the 1.7 was my 50 number. And then this is the, and notice these residuals. The residuals for both this model and the other model, they look terrible. So while we might think there was some curvature in our original data, and there does look like there is some, these other models are no better. So I would not use them. And if you do use them, you can. I think it's going to generate a much smaller number of rubber bands, and Barbie's not going to enjoy her ride as much. All right. So after we were done, you had a little thing to fill out. I'm just going to go over that real quick. Oh, no, this was my, this is the worksheet. So there was my data. This is me working things out. You can stop this and look at it. Rubber bands and distance. We didn't, Duff's association between rubber bands and distance is strong and positive. I've got my context, strong and positive. That's my direction and strength. There don't seem to be any unusual features, no outliers as far as I can tell. The association appears to be linear. So there's my shape, which I often forget. No, the form, which I often forget, is the F. I got 0.997. Oh, this is kind of a trick question, but it comes up. There are no units for correlation. And if you flip-flop your X and your Y, it doesn't change the correlation value. It doesn't change the sign. What it will change is the slope. And it'll still be a positive slope if it was positive, but it will change because instead of having Y over X, you effectively now have X over Y. So, okay, this is the correct way to write these things. Now, if you want to write Y hat equals 28.8 plus 16.8, whatever yours came out to is X, you can, but then you need to do something like I did up here with where you say, this is what my X is, its number of rubber bands. This is what my Y is, its distance in centimeters. That's probably a better way to do it. It's just label right up front what my X and Y is, and that way you can just say Y hat equals 28.8. Yours is going to be different depending on what your model generated. Okay, then we plugged in the X squared, which I showed you. This one, the proper way to write it is Y hat or distance hat equals whatever this is plus, and then the input is X squared or whatever the name of my variable is squared. This residual model looked terrible, although the R was pretty good. We did the same thing with log. This is the correct way to write log. So if you could say Y is or Z or something is log distance, but probably better to write it that way. And then our input is back to rubber bands. Still a bad residual. So I'm going to pick the linear model. I plug in 550 and work backwards to figure out I should use almost exactly 31. And so I decided to try 31 rubber bands. I didn't expect her to have any zero. And I'm going to confess now, what I confessed to my other class, I kind of cheated, is I wasn't sure about my 31 number. So the day before I tried it with like 25, and I could tell, okay, this is not great. I'll trust doing 31 today. And that's why she was super close, but I had more data than you all had. And the other thing I did not mention, the danger of what we did here, assuming we even knew our linear model was pretty good, is we were extrapolating. So that is, I'm going to actually type that out because you should know that extrapolation is dangerous. Extrapolation is dangerous because we don't know if our model holds up, even if it's linear for 0 through 7 rubber bands. Once we get to 8, 9, 10, or 11, other things can happen, and maybe it stops being linear. Maybe it shoots up, maybe it shoots down, but just be careful about extending your model. That is often also an AP question, is like why, in fact, that was one in the AP classroom the other day about somebody who had sales, but they only tried it up with $1,000. And then the question was, should they launch a new marketing campaign based on using $100,000 worth of data? And no, that extrapolation was very dangerous to assume the same results. I think I am almost done. Was there anything else in here? I did not look at my key. Oh, my model for the thing that you guys turned in. No, I'm going to go over that later. Okay, thanks.